My girlfriend pushed for weeks that I should finally meet her parents over dinner. The moment I sat down, she started tearing me apart in Spanish, confident I could not follow a word. She smirked while saying he is too dumb to even notice. By the end of the evening, I thanked her parents warmly in perfect Spanish and laid bare every lie she had spun about me. My girlfriend of 2 years, Elena, had been on a mission for half a year. That mission was simple: get me to meet her family. I hesitated not from fear of commitment, but because of the way she painted them. They seemed strict, traditional, and deeply rooted in each other's lives. Elena, however, was relentless. She insisted this dinner was the crucial next step in our relationship. At last I agreed. The big night was set for yesterday. I did not realize I was not going to a dinner. I was walking straight into a trap. Before I go further, there is something important you need to know about me. My last name is Lawson. To the world, I look like a typical American man, but my mother, who passed away when I was 16, was from Seville in Spain. She came to the United States in her 20s. During my childhood, Spanish was the language of our home. It was how she sang to me, told me stories, and said she loved me. After she died, it became a language too heavy with memories to use. I tucked it away deep inside and rarely spoke it again. Elena knew my mother had passed, but never asked beyond that. She is not someone who lingers on details unless they involve her directly. She assumed my mother was American, just like my father. In 2 years, she never once asked about my mother's heritage. That I could speak flawless Castilian Spanish was not a secret I tried to keep, but one she never cared enough to discover. We arrived at her parents' house last night. They were exactly as described, warm on the surface, yet carrying a sharp and measuring gaze. Her father, Mr. Alvarez, shook my hand firmly. Her mother. Mrs. Alvarez gave me a polite but cool smile. We took our seats in their formal dining room and the performance began. Elena launched into rapid Spanish with them almost instantly. She turned to me with a bright smile and said, "We are just so happy to see each other," and promised they would switch to English soon. That switch never came. For 2 hours I sat there listening to the woman I loved methodically dismantle my character in what she thought was a private code. I smiled when they looked my way, nodded politely, passed the bread, all while understanding every venomous word. She began with my work. I am an architect in a strong firm, she told them, but claimed I was not ambitious, content in a small office, and that she was the one with true drive. She even said she had to cover most of our vacations and dinners. The truth was, I made more than double her salary and had paid for every trip we had taken. Then she criticized my personality and culture. She told them I had no interest in their heritage and would not even try to learn Spanish, that I was a bland American who cared only about football and hamburgers. I had just finished reading the biography of Spanish architect Santiago Calatrava in the original language the week before. The final wound came when her mother asked if marriage was serious for us. Elena laughed in a way that felt like glass shattering in my ears. She said she wanted to marry, but claimed I was the one afraid of commitment and that she had to beg me to talk about the future. In my jacket was the custom design plan for her engagement ring. I was ready to propose on a surprise trip to Italy for her birthday. The talk went on the same way all night. They pulled apart my finances, my future, my very character. And the cruelest part was how she would glance at me with a soft, affectionate look while telling her parents I was a simple minded burden. As the final course was set on the table, she dealt the last cruel strike. Her father leaned back and asked her, "Are you certain about him?" "Hija, he seems rather plain." Isabel gave a soft laugh and stretched her hand across to tap mine in a gesture of false warmth. Her eyes locked on mine with a look that pretended affection before she turned to her parents, speaking smoothly in Spanish. "It is all right. He is far too slow to realize we are speaking about him. See how he just grins without a clue." In that moment, all the hurt, anger, and betrayal hardened inside me into one single shard of cold determination. I would not shout. I would not make a scene. I would wait until the perfect chance arrived, and I would destroy the careful world she had built, using nothing except the truth that moment came as we prepared to leave her father, perhaps sensing guilt, patted my shoulder and spoke in slow, measured English as though to a small child. "Oh, it was a pleasure meeting you, Daniel," he said. I returned a calm smile, meeting his gaze, and let the language of my mother, the same one Isabel had turned into a weapon, pour out with ease. "Encantado, Señor Alvarez," I told him in flawless, unaccented Castilian. "The pleasure is mine." "Mr. Alvarez." I then turned to his wife. "Gracias." "Señora Alvarez, your cooking is wonderful. This meal has been a delight. Thank you for welcoming me." The impact was instant. Mrs. Alvarez dropped her fork onto the plate. Her husband stared wide-eyed, his mouth slightly open, and Isabel's skin went so pale she looked near faint, but I was not yet finished. I kept the same pleasant smile as I faced them both again, still speaking in fluid Spanish, and Isabel, "I must thank you too. This evening has been very revealing. There are only a few matters I wish to settle while we are here together." Update 1. The air in the Alvarez dining room grew heavy. The only sound came from Mrs. Alvarez's uneven breath. Isabel sat frozen, her face showing the fear of a chess player, just realizing the opponent they thought was a novice was in fact a master toying with them. I remained composed, as if making polite farewell remarks, and addressed her parents once more. First, I began. "Isabel had raised doubts about my profession and finances. I want to assure you she is mistaken. Last month, I became a junior partner in my architectural firm, which came with a notable raise. I am quite secure." I took out my phone, opened the confirmation email for the trip to Italy I had arranged for her birthday, and set it on the table for them to view. Here is the itinerary for the surprise holiday. I planned next month first-class flights, a suite in the Grand de Russi Hotel in Rome. I believe she told you she paid for our travel clearly. A misunderstanding. I glanced at Isabel. A tear slid down her cheek, cutting through her makeup second. I said, turning to her parents, she claimed, "I showed no care for her heritage. This hurt most deeply. My mother, Lucia, was born in Seville. She raised me in her language. It was the speech of my home and my heart. After she passed, it became something sacred, too personal to share." Casually, Isabel assumed my quiet meant ignorance or disrespect, which is regrettable. Mrs. Alvarez placed her hand on her chest, her expression shifting to sympathy. Mr. Alvarez looked at his daughter with growing disappointment. And lastly, I said, delivering the final strike, the matter of marriage. I looked at Isabel directly, my voice colder. "Now you told them I feared commitment, that I was the reason marriage was delayed." He told them this, even though I had spent the past month working closely with a jeweler to create a one-of-a-kind engagement ring for her, knowing I planned to ask her to be my wife beneath the stars in Rome. I let those words linger in the silence of the dining room for a long moment before speaking again, but I see now that no man can or should propose to a woman who believes he's nothing more than a dim-witted fool. No man can build a future with someone who twists the sacred language of his late mother into a weapon to mock him and belittle him in front of her family. I rose from my seat, turned to her parents one final time, and said, "Dueo, gracias," once more, thanking them for their hospitality and remarking on their beautiful home. Then I left the house, climbed into my car, and drove away, leaving Maria to sit among the wreckage of the world she had so carefully constructed. The drive back to our apartment felt like the longest 30 minutes of my life. Eventually, she emerged from the house, slid into the passenger seat, and we drove in heavy silence. That was louder than any argument. Once inside the apartment, the dam burst. She lashed out, accusing me of deceiving her, of plotting against her and humiliating her. "You knew all along," she shouted. "You sat there and let me talk. You set me up." "No, Maria," I replied, my voice tired. "I did nothing but sit at that table and exist. You handled the rest. You humiliated yourself with your own words and lies. The only thing I did was understand them. She began to cry, then begging me to forgive her, claiming she never meant it, that she was only trying to impress her parents by making herself look better, but her excuses were as flimsy as they were obvious. There's no coming back from this. I told her, you lied about every part of our life together, and you used my mother's memory as the stage for your little act. That is something I will never forgive. I walked into our bedroom, took my suitcase from the closet, and told her plainly, this is my apartment. The lease is in my name. I want you to pack your belongings and be gone by the end of the week. She stared at me, her face collapsing under the weight of my words, realizing she had lost not just an argument, but everything update too. The following week was filled with the cold mechanics of separation. Maria moved through the apartment like a shadow, quietly packing her possessions into boxes. The air was thick with her silent, bitter sorrow and my own unshakable resolve. There were a few last half-hearted attempts at apology, but they rang hollow. She was not sorry for her actions, only for being caught, and on Friday, as promised, she was gone. I carried her final box to the car without a word, closed the door, and stepped back inside, feeling the deep peace that follows the removal of something toxic. I thought it was over, but I was wrong. The real aftermath began a few days later when I answered a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Mr. Ramirez Maria's father, his voice heavy with sincerity. Alex, he said, I am calling to apologize. You owe me no apology, sir. I answered, but he insisted, saying he was sorry for his daughter's behavior in his home, and for the things she had said, and for the fact that they had allowed it to happen. He admitted there was no excuse, and that they had raised her to be better. But that night had revealed their failure. What she did to me and to my mother's memory was shameful. He went on to say they had spoken with her at length after I left, and that when confronted with the truth, she broke down and confessed to everything they were deeply disappointed and ashamed. We do not condone her actions. He finished, you are a good man with character, and I am sorry my family caused you such pain. I was genuinely moved and told him, thank you. Hector, that means more than you know. It was the first sign that Maria's foundation of support was not as strong as she thought her parents had always been in her corner. But her lies and her disrespect had been so severe that she had managed to drive away even her greatest allies. Sophia, on the other hand, was busy trying to twist the story when it came to our mutual friends. She told them an elaborate and tangled version about how I had been living a secret life, hiding who I really was for years, and that the breakup happened because I was manipulative and dishonest, but the tale she spun was far too far-fetched. The real story of what happened at the dinner was too specific, too striking, and too telling. All it took was for me to share the truth with one or two close friends, and from there the truth spread quickly. The image of me sitting quietly at a dinner table while my fiancé unknowingly insulted me in a language I understood was far more believable and captivating than any vague accusations she could make. Her effort to make me the villain only made her seem desperate and irrational. The last pitiful gesture came in the form of a text I received from her just last week. It read, I know you canceled the trip to Italy. I think you owe me half the cost of the ticket since you broke up with me, and it was supposed to be my birthday gift. I stared at the words and a slow, sad smile formed. Even after everything, after the lies and the humiliation, her first thought was still about money, about what she believed she was owed. I did not respond. I simply deleted the message and blocked her number. For good, final update. It has now been 6 months since my life changed so suddenly, and in the end, for the better. The chaos with Sophia has faded and been replaced with a steady peace. The last details about her have trickled back to me, painting a picture of a life shaped by the consequences of that one night. Her relationship with her parents is by all accounts strained. Her father, who is a man of principle, was so appalled by her behavior that he put her on what he called life probation. They made her start therapy. They cut off her financial support. They are forcing her to finally be a responsible adult. The unconditional love and protection she took for granted is gone, replaced by cautious disappointment. She lost her fiance and the pedestal her parents kept her on. She's still living in a small apartment, working her old job, and from what I hear, is miserable. Her attempts at dating again have gone nowhere. The story of that dinner has become something of a warning in our social circle, and her reputation as deceitful and materialistic follows her. As for me, I have been rebuilding. The first thing I did was sell the engagement ring. I took money and booked a different kind of trip. Instead of Italy, I went to Seville, the city where my mother was born. I spent 2 weeks there, walking the same streets she once walked, eating the food she loved, and speaking her language not in secret but as a celebration. I visited the neighborhood where she grew up and sat in the church where she was baptized. It was my way of reclaiming a part of myself Sophia had tried to stain and making it my own again. The trip was transformative. I reconnected not only with my mother's memory, but with the part of myself I had hidden for too long. I came back feeling whole, grounded, and free. I do not know what the future holds. I am not dating. I am enjoying the calm rhythm of my life. I focus on my work, spend time with genuine friends, and plan another trip, maybe to Argentina. Next, Sophia's biggest act of disrespect was using the language of my heart as a weapon. She thought it was her private joke, but she was wrong. It was my heritage, my mother's love, and the truth that set me free. She wanted to define me as clueless. Instead, she revealed herself as someone blind to the worth of what she had lost, and that is a loss greater than any I could have caused.